This program and its contents are designed for information and educational purposes only. This program does not render medical advice or professional services and is not intended to be a substitute for professional care. The information provided here should not be used for the purposes of diagnosing or treating a medical or psychiatric condition. If you have or suspect you may have a health problem, consult your healthcare provider.
This program is brought to you by Movement Solutions and Soaring Wings Vineyard and Brewing. Welcome to Positive Momentum TV. I'm Diane Silva, and today my guests are Captain Jim Shaw of Soaring Wings Winery and Brewery and Matt McKenna. We're going to continue our discussion on aviation. Are there any other questions that you're frequently asked that maybe, or questions that maybe will help any of us who are working toward actually being more comfortable flying?
That's a tough one. I get all sorts of questions in the cockpit. People just want to know how the airplane works, how does it stay in the air? Most of you know that we do get up to fairly high speeds, when we're going down the runway. When I fly a really heavy, wide-body jet, the 767, and I'm going on a long flight, we have a lot of weight on the airplane. And the heavier it is, the faster it has to go to get enough lift to lift that mass. Right. So we'll be bringing our nose up 180 miles an hour when we finally lift off the runway. So it's fairly high. And
when we're standing here watching these planes, they don't look like they're going that fast.
No.
It's like they're just poking along, and then the nose goes up. I know they have to be at least 155 miles an hour for the bigger planes to come off. The little trainers we flew were like 60 miles an hour, they still come up. But you're watching these through the terminal going, that's not going, sure. Wow.
We also need more runway to do that.
Yeah.
And it's, once again, safety. A big airplane that's really heavy, takes more runway. It's thrust, too, how right. much thrust it's developing. A hot summer day, jet engines develop a little less thrust. High altitude, like Denver. Denver's got some 16,000-foot runways because right. of their high altitude. High density right. altitude reduces the thrust. It also reduces the amount of air molecules that go over the wing. So as we go at higher and higher altitude, what we call our indicated airspeed goes down, and our true airspeed goes up greatly. That's why we like flying high.
Oh, okay.
Less fuel.
Cool. Now, one other question, does passenger movement in the aircraft affect the way you can handle the aircraft? Like if a couple of us get up and walk around, or you've seen parties on a plane, does that affect how it handles? And
if everybody ran to the tail end of the airplane during flight, the aircraft would trim it out okay. and it wouldn't care.
Okay.
Basically it can overcome that, but I wouldn't recommend everybody getting in the tail end of the aircraft. Do that. There's some light aircraft are more sensitive to it than the big jets are.
So I've got a question. With those larger aircrafts, say you've got a fully loaded plane compared to a plane that's got a couple passengers on it. Of course, when you're on takeoff, you can feel that weight, and the more energy it's going to take to get that plane off. But when you're in, up at above 18,000 feet, can you still feel that weight, or does it all fly basically the same at that point?
No, the heavier you are, the slower that particular airframe will climb, that particular airplane, and it reduces your service ceiling. So if you're extremely heavy, you may not be able to get up and get over the top of some weather as easily, so you'll have to go around it more. Mm-hmm. Typically, we don't like to fly over the top of anything, because you'll tend to get bumps there. I'm really, really, really sensitive to trying to stay out of those bumps, and we talked about in the earlier episode, turbulent air causing bumps during flight. I spend a lot of time looking at the weather charts, where the troughs are, where the jet stream is, forecast turbulence, and I try to stay out of anything that's significant. You're going to get some bumps on most all flights, but we try to stay out of the ones that we call moderate, and we cannot even, by regulation, we cannot flight plan through or go through known areas of severe turbulence. We have to stay out of it, which makes sense.
Yeah. So what about icing situations? Because obviously if you're coming in to land or something, and there might not be that situation at first, but you might have to get through that to get down to the airport. One, if it's that kind of situation, do you just say, we'll go somewhere else and turn around?
Actually, all the larger jets, and we're talking anything that's probably got jet engines on it, have pretty good icing systems on them. Most all of them have engine anti-ice and de-icing, and most of them have wing. If you don't have some way to de-ice the wings, you have to be careful how long you spend in the weather. But everything I fly, and that's all the jets, it's really not much of an issue. You have to get into really severe icing for it to become something you want to not spend as much time in. And severe icing, even moderate icing, usually is in thin bands. It only takes place for a while. Only once in my career have I seen icing for an extended period of time. It was during the storm of the century. Oh gosh, what was that? They made a movie out of it.
Oh,
I flew on that day, and we took off in a blizzard up in Bradford, up in Connecticut, and we were in light icing conditions until we got down to southern Georgia, or near Georgia, and then landed in 80-mile-an-hour winds in Tampa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but they were down the runway. So it was a 727. It was almost like hovering.
Oh, wow.
So I assume that you get assigned a route, and then you've got to go through extensive training. I mean, if you're an upcoming pilot, you just get hired on with the airlines, you'll probably get assigned a route, and you'll probably be first seat or co-pilot or an engineer, right? Do you have to go through extensive training on that route so you know it in and out?
Not really. The training, really extensive training you get, is going to be in that aircraft.
I see.
Because what it boils down to, from a pilot's perspective, most airplanes are the same for how you land. There's a strip of concrete, you fly down the ILS or some sort of vertical glide path and lateral glide path, lateral navigation. There's the runway, you pull off the power, you touch it down, you land. Now some runways are shorter, and you have to be cognizant of that. All of our flight control computes our ability to land on certain runways and take off. So we have performance data that says you can only go up to this weight or land at this weight and stuff like that. As for the rest of the training, when you first get hired, you've already been flying around as a commercial pilot for some time and have probably flown around the country a bit and learned kind of in the trenches. And when you first come on with a major airline, you're going to get flown around with usually experienced captains. They're all experienced pilots. And he or she is going to help you if you ever have you go into a new place. You sit there and you talk about it, and you discuss it. And in our books, our manuals, that airport is extensively discussed. If there's any issues that would be different than there's a piece of concrete, I'm going to put the airplane down on it. It's all there for you. Cool. You just have to know how to access it, and that's what we train you to do.
Okay.
Cool. This program is brought to you by Movement Solutions and Soaring Wings Vineyard and Brewing.